police officer, most important thing we need to do is root them out of the system.
We do. It's like any profession. There's always bad apples, and good cops hate bad cops just as bad as anybody.
No, you're 100% right.
We make our officers do things today that it's hard, and 90% of the time they're reacting to something,
right?
And they got to make a split-second decision,
right?
And sometimes that's a bad decision, sometimes it's a good decision, and as long as it's an honest mistake, we have to learn from that.
Yeah.
And because you guys see it, we put so much on their plate from being a counselor.
Oh yeah.
The next call they're being spit at or hit or shot at, and the next thing they got to pull somebody out of a car at a wreck.
Right.
It's a hard thing to do.
No, it's an emotional roller coaster.
And they're
is
making
what it
decisions
is.
this quick, and we're quick to judge.
Let's talk about what kind of training they go through. And,
especially you here in Lee County.
Yeah. So we have the shooting in Atlanta, and I always say, if somebody fights me and then turns around and I think they're going to shoot me, I'm probably going to, and I'm not a law enforcement, I'm probably going to shoot them.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've learned over many years and being an investigator, I see a lot of things that everybody sees on social media, the pictures, the videos, and to be honest, we don't know the facts. We're seeing a picture. I don't know the facts. I would say the picture we all saw a couple weeks ago, which put us into the situation we're in today, that photograph of Mr. Floyd and the police officer, that's certainly disturbing.
Sure.
But we don't know the facts, so I try not to make any comments on it. I know the training across New Mexico is standardized with the use of force, only a force necessary to effect the arrest, and that's what we go with.
So we're not going to see any defund the Lee County Sheriff's Department.
No, there's going to be no defund, and we're a nation of law and order.
Yeah. You see what's going on in Seattle, Washington right now.
What about our own Albuquerque?
Right.
Yeah.
What did Mayor Keller put out yesterday?
Yeah.
That social, they're going to create a
social committee for,
and they're going to respond to
social justice. Can you imagine? And I tickled your wife. I posted up this law enforcement in the future, and it's, hello, thank you for calling 911. If this is a problem with somebody burglarizing your house, we'll see if we can send somebody over there to talk to them by giving your stuff back. And by the way, if your life is in danger, we'll see if we can possibly get somebody over there to talk that person off the ledge. Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's times where you have to be a negotiator, and at times you have to be, somebody that can relate to people. But at other times, that ain't gonna work.
And just talking to you guys, where this is going to lead.
Oh no,
we know where this is going to lead. And I would say, I could speak for, the Hobbs Police Department does a good job with it. The Lee County Sheriff's Office, anytime we're involved in a pursuit or any type of use of force, it's reviewed by a sergeant, it's reviewed by a captain, it's reviewed by a chief deputy, all of them. And when there's something that's out of violation, then we address that and we move on. But we all know where that's headed. And that's, again, I'm going to fall back that we're blessed here in Lee County.
Yeah.
We have a very large majority that supports law enforcement, and I appreciate that.
You know what? I think it's funny. I see people holding up the signs that say, all cops are bad, or there was one in Hobbs that said, police are a bunch of bastards. And then when things go bad, they call the cops. I'm like, wait a second. I thought they were all bad.
Well, that's the beauty of our country.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. That's the beauty of our country. I
stand for people being able to protest.
Yeah.
Sheriff, you said that policing, as far as using force, standardized in the state of New Mexico. But let me ask you this. We're in rural New Mexico. Then you've got the metros in Albuquerque. Is policing different? For example, let's say that you have to arrest someone, but you know them. Do you take more of an Andy Griffith approach for that?
Well, I would say that,
because you live in rural and you know these people.
Yeah, I would say that, the laws are standard.
Yeah.
The laws don't change. Each department or agency has their own set of policies that, how we get to policies and laws is because it happened. If there's a new policy created within an agency, that's because something happened that maybe fell into that gray area where there wasn't anything concise to
Sure.
that. So that's where your policies come from. And they fall under best practices, what we're seeing across the country. Case law. Case law is where we get a lot of our laws from.
Right.
And we're constantly looking at best practices across the country on things like that. But use of force is standard. And, you know, you only use enough force to affect the arrest. But, you know, you certainly get into some situations where you're in a fight for your life.
Sure.
That changes everything, right? When
All bets are off.
when you're by
Your
yourself,
job is to get home at
when
night.
you're by yourself and you're
Right.
out in the middle of nowhere and your backup is 30, 45 to an hour later and you're in a fight for your life, you know, we talk about chokeholds, but when you're in a fight for your life, that's different.
Yeah,
That's
I
different.
agree. I agree. If you're,
And I want my deputy to go home.
yeah, I agree.
So
I agree 100%.
Now, I was talking to Vivian Martinez, your PIO, last week, and the Lee County Sheriff's Office has a simulator that has different scenarios that the deputies go through. Talk about that for a second.
Well, it started years ago when we used to call it a FATS machine, but this system we have now, you can actually create your own scenarios. It has everything from suicidal subjects to shots fired to barking dogs, and we can create an atmosphere where that officer or deputy feels that he's in a real situation, and they have to make that decision to use force or de-escalate, and it puts them on the spot, and that is very valuable training, especially nowadays when we're into, you know, a lot of the mental illness and having to de-escalate and
Right.
critical incident stuff, and that's what I was talking about. We're making these deputies do things more today than we ever have when they have to be a counselor, they have to be
Yeah.
a traffic accident reconstructionist, and they have to act, or, you know, we get it on both ends. We get it. We all saw it, and I was talking to Russ a minute ago. We all remember the Florida school shooting a
Yes.
few years ago. Remember that?
Yeah,
Where
where
they
the-
came out and the sheriff condemned his deputy for not acting fast enough or not
Right.
acting well.
At
Then,
all, right.
Within a few days of that news cycle, the country was calling him a coward
right.
for failure to enact, for failing to act.
Right.
Well, so we get it on both ends: a failed to act, or we use too much force.
Right.
That seems to be what we're seeing today.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's a tough balance.
You know, I always say, and I've said it for a long time, I don't think there's any body in law enforcement that, you know, they go to work one day and they decide, you know what, I'm going to rough somebody up. No. You know, I think it's just not the way it, you know, me personally, I couldn't be in law enforcement. Number one, 80% of the people you're dealing with are the same people that you've dealt with time and time and time again, and you see them going in and out and in and out. I couldn't handle that because I did my job. I arrested you.
This is the special thing about it, is that even this morning, with everything that's going on in this country, I attend the day shift briefings as much as I can. The deputies come in, and it's just another day. They got a smile on their face, despite what's going on in the country and what's being said about law enforcement. They love coming to work. They love being out in the community, making a positive impact.
Yeah.
And
I think it's important that
That's-
we talk to kids, and you guys have implemented several programs that you get out in front of kids.
yes,
You
we
get
started the DARE program
Yeah.
again, and we only had two sessions with it until the governor
COVID,
shut us down. But
Yeah.
they're excited to get back with that.
Yeah.
And
Well, anytime you can get in front of
Yes.
kids, talk to kids, and the kids can go, well, Johnny said that all cops are bad. This guy's a good guy, and so we gotta change that mentality. There's a
And-
lot of hate out there.
there is, and another organization that we got going with, which is the Lee County Sheriff's Office Explorers.
Right.
Yes, I covered
And-
that last month.
Yeah, and we were talking. I was talking to the undersheriff this morning, and we had so many kids interested in it. I had to open it up for additional positions,
Right.
and we're probably gonna be looking at about 29 to 30 kids.
That's awesome.
And that's, these are tomorrow's leaders.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether or not
forget
they
that.
get into law enforcement, they're tomorrow's leaders.
They're tomorrow's leaders.
Yeah.
And I still say, guys, when I saw DARE disappear in the mid-'90s, I think that's when a lot of things started to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it did. It died. Some states still had it. I know in Hobbs we didn't have DARE anymore, but to lose that, I think
the most important thing is getting police officers in the classrooms and talking and talking to kids about what's going on, and sometimes a kid just needs a hug.
That's
You
it.
know, he just needs to be loved on a little bit and say, I'm here for you if you need some help.
And the texter says, protect and serve with compassion.
yes, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that
I think it's a fine line. I think it's a very fine line. Be soft, but know when you have to be, hard and by the book.
and one of the hardest things to teach a young officer is, sometimes if you close your mouth and listen, listen. There's two sides to a story,
Right.
and you start to learn that. Well, if you're on a critical or a crisis call, and you listen, you can understand why that person is where he's at,
Right.
and be empathetic to it. Yeah, law enforcement is changing in a good way for that. So,
Yeah.
but that texter's right.
The president currently is in a meeting with leaders across the country on policing reform. And a couple of things they're going to be talking about is taking a social worker with you on a situation. This is the libertards that are saying this. And then one of the
Thanks for being very sensitive and saying that.
Hope I don't have to comment on that.
right. And one of the other things they want to do is, for example, let's say you get an officer who has several write-ups at one department, but wants to, for example, maybe he's not doing his job at one of the city departments, but yet he wants to work at the county. What they're saying is that maybe we shouldn't allow those transfers.
Well, let me ask you something on that, though, Sheriff. Then I'm going to let you answer. Just because you're accused of something doesn't mean that you're guilty of something. So they keep saying, well, this guy had, 9 incidents. Well, that doesn't mean he was guilty of 9.
And what were the 9 incidents?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Are we talking, maybe a damage to a unit or integrity issues?
Right.
Big difference.
Yeah,
Big difference.
Big
Big
difference.
So you touch on the transfers.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that latter part of that question you had was, I think we do kick the can down the road when it comes to officers and their baggage. And I say that in the means that we do backgrounds on everybody that we hire. Should our backgrounds be a little more in depth? Probably. I think the can gets kicked down the road quite a bit. It's just like any other application. You're going to list references, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going to list references that you want me to talk to.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you're going to call that agency he's coming from, and 90% of the time they're just going to tell you,
you
confirm
can't.
his hire date.
Yeah, you can't answer
But you
honestly.
can go in person.
Yeah.
You can go in person, and I want to know everything about this deputy.
Right. Even in our field, we can't. 99.9% of the time, when you call a reference, they can't say anything. They can personally be sued for saying something bad about that person. The only thing that they can say, if you say, "Would you hire him back?" and they say no, that's the only.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. And
if you guys hire people, if you got an officer or deputy that's wanting to come over, and he's been written up for missing court one day, and
right.
he got into a minor accident one day, and we drive thousands of miles a month. It's going to happen,
right?
Or this particular person has where he's giglioed, or he's been found where his integrity's in question,
right?
2 different employees.
Yeah, totally different.
So we got to look at them case by case. But I think law enforcement, we have been guilty for kicking the can down the road and hiring people.
Well, I think everybody has. I think teachers, the same thing. Teachers that they just go to a different school district, and it's tough. So I would be okay with the history follows the employee. I'd be fine. And I think everybody would be fine with that.
And another thing that I've noticed over my career is that you get deputies and officers throughout the country that go out there and they answer the radio and they go on their calls, and then you get officers and deputies that are very proactive.
Sure.
They go look for things. They go drum things up. They're the ones that get complained on the most.
Oh yeah.
So you got to take everything into account with everything, and we put them in a tough world today.
Yeah. One of the texters as we wind up our interview this morning, and ask, can you tell a sheriff when one of your officers is burned out?
Yes. And I see that quite a bit when an officer or deputy hits that 12, 13, 15-year mark, or any of our deputies that are assigned to our drug task force.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
that's a tough world to be in, and I'm constantly watching, I'm constantly listening, and I've been there.
So
I've
let me
been in
ask you
these
this much,
situations
Sheriff.
where I was burnt out.
It's 25 years to retire from a sheriff or municipal police department. Is that too, do we put all the eggs in the same basket, as the secretary retiring or our officer? Maybe 25 years is too much.
I got a couple comments on that. I can tell you that that first 10 years, you're learning how to be a good cop.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of goes slow, and then you hit 13, 15, 18, and it flies by. And at 20 and 25 years, now you're probably at the best that you're going to be as a cop. And they go.
There you go.
That's true.
Hey, Sheriff, I appreciate you coming in. We'd love to have you back in, and I'd like to put Tom through some simulator training and see how he does.
I do not have a problem.
Okay, well, set it up with Vivian, and I'll go down and
I
watch
would
this.
love for him to do that. I think it would be awesome. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thanks, guys.
All right, 9:31, Tradio coming up with the award-winning Russ Black. Stand by.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. At noon Eastern, President Trump at the White House plans to sign an executive order on police